Hi, my name is Gail Kirsteers and I lead on the Self-Directed Support project in Fife, and I'm going to talk you through self-directed support. The Act was introduced by the Scottish Government in 2013 and it's to give people, including children and adults, more choice about how their care is managed and giving them the flexibility control over that care. The name of the law is the Social Care Self-Directed Support Scotland Act 2013. So SDS, or self-directed support, is an approach that all professionals should use in their working capacity. And it should place the person at the centre of any conversations around their support, giving them that choice and control. SDS is a human rights approach and it focuses on what the person's goals or outcomes, as we also know it, and how those outcomes can be achieved using a personal budget which provides their care and support. SDS explores family and community. So it's around what network of support the person has, whether it's from family members or whether it's from community members, as well as how their health and well-being can be improved. In order to get self-directed support, you have to meet an eligibility criteria. This should be consistent across the whole of the local authority areas. However, it can change slightly depending on what local authority area you stay in. So usually the eligibility criteria is set out for personal care needs. So if someone needs support with their personal care, they can ask for an assessment. However, SDS is a human rights-based approach, so it is someone's right to ask for an assessment. And the rules are all around this eligibility criteria. So the first step then would be social work. You would either be assigned a duty worker or assigned a social worker or a social work assistant, and they would come out to complete an assessment. Now, this assessment can sometimes be called an assessment of need. For adults, it can be called a positive outcomes assessment, and for children, it could be called a Section 23. The assessment should always use a person-centred approach. So again, it should put the person at the centre of the conversations that social work have. And the assessment is just all about conversations, and it helps to identify and draw out what the person's strengths, goals and dreams are for the future. All those golden threads, it teases all them out. And it also identifies any needs or support that the person may require to fulfil those goals and outcomes. Depending again on the local authority area, but assessments usually take around 12 weeks to complete. So social workers would come out a few times, get to know you, get to know what dreams and assets and skills you have, and any members of your family or community can all be involved in the assessment process. The more people involved, the richer the assessment will be, because they can all add information to that assessment. Once the assessment is completed, the person has to agree to what's all in the assessment, all the content, and then it will be shared with a panel of social workers, and they then decide on a budget how many hours you're going to get. And sometimes they'll measure it in hours, sometimes they'll measure it in a budget. You need to know what your budget is depending on what option you're going to go for, but we'll talk about options after. The person can ask for any kind of independent support to be present at the assessment. It's always better to have someone with you because you might forget to ask questions, or you might forget some of the information that social work were asking you. So it's always a good idea to have someone with you, whether it's a family member, a friend, independent support like a project, or an advocate present during these assessments. So what will be spoken about in the assessment could be things like the person's health and well-being, the support that they get, the network of support. Again, that, as I said earlier, that could be from family, friends, extended family, people in the community. And it also discusses what a meaningful life would look like to them. So what do they get, what drives them to get up in the morning? What do they like to do? It also discusses things around how they manage at home and outside. So safety, how do you keep yourself safe at home? What support needs to be put in place to ensure safety? And again, accessing the community. What ensures their safety in the community? Do they need someone with them? How do they go for shopping? How do they manage independent travel? All that type of thing all comes into that. The person's views, as well as the views of other important people in life, needs to be considered. So anybody else that's involved with the person, if you've got a carer, for instance, that all needs to go into the assessment of how the carer is managing in their life. All this is pulled together in the one assessment of need. After the assessment has been completed, there will be a support plan or care plan completed. Now this plan just means that social work will come out and discuss your outcomes, your goals, and how you are going to how your support is going to be delivered to meet those outcomes and goals. The support plan details how the person's support will also be delivered. So it goes into more detail that the assessment didn't go into. And it's very detailed around who's going to provide your support, when it's going to be provided, and it makes a plan for that. So if you get a budget, there are 4 options. This sounds a bit scary, but it actually gives you a lot of choice around the care that's been provided. So option 1 is the person gets a direct payment. So you will open up another bank account and the money will go directly into that bank account. But local authority areas are now using payment cards, they're changing over to payment cards. So you might be given a payment card and your budget will be added to your payment card. And what happens then is you become the employer. So you will employ your own PAs. It could be someone you know in your community that you've already got a relationship built up with, but you will employ your own PAs and you have to do everything that an employer does. If this sounds a bit scary, but you still want to go with option 1, you can get your direct payment paid into an accountant and they will manage your budget for you. You have to ensure that every time your PA comes in and works, then you have to get a timesheet signed by the PA, and at the end of the month you send it to the accountants and they can manage your budget for you. Option 2 is that the person directs the available support. So for that, then it's like a broker. So social work, you can find your own care provider and the budget will be managed for you. Option 3 is the local authority. So it's more the traditional method. So local authority will find the best service for you, the best care provider for you, and they will arrange the support for you and take care of all the financial side. Option 4 is that you can have a little bit of pick and mix. So you can have a mixture of option 1 and 2 or option 1 and 3, depending on what you want to go for. Nothing is set in stone with your options. So for instance, if you wanted to go with option 1 and give it a try and then you felt a wee bit further down the line that this isn't going to work for me, you can then ask social work to change your option. So nothing is set in stone. Again, it's all about giving you that choice, control and flexibility. So for young people coming up to their 16th birthday and they don't have capacity to make their own decisions, whether that's around their financial well-being or their welfare to do with their medical decisions, that sort of thing, they will need to get, you'll need to get guardianship in place, and that needs to be done through a lawyer, and because it goes through a court. It's usually set up for 3 years and then reviewed after that again. You can either get the welfare guardianship or the financial guardianship separate, depending on the capacity of the young person. Reviews, once your budget is in place and your support is in place, there will normally be a review 6 weeks later. That's just to make sure that everything is up and running okay and that there are no teething problems that need to be ironed out at that point. You should then have another review at 6 months. Again, it's just to check that everything is going okay. Then your reviews will go to yearly. And if there is any change at any time in circumstances, if the person's health deteriorates or just anything that might change, you can ask for a review at any time from social work. It doesn't have to wait for the year. So how can Enable help? Well, we're an independent project, so we can offer independent support, and our independent support is mostly through advocacy at meeting, and those meetings can be with professionals, with social work, with health professionals, and we do a lot of work through education with young people at school, transition meetings, that sort of thing. So advocacy plays a big part in our role at the moment. We also support through the SDS pathway, so that could be around preparing you for the SDS assessment so that you know the kind of questions that social work are going to ask you when they come out, so that nothing is a bit of a shock to you or a surprise. And we also offer a little bit of support around trying to pull together adverts for you to advertise and recruit your own PAs. So that would be under option 1. We also support to look for a service provider. So it depends on which service provider you want to go with. We also help support social workers to find creative solutions or a service provider as well. So the other types of support that our project is involved in, when we're involved in transition meetings for young people, that could be from moving from high school to college or from college and beyond. We support people with the ILF Transition Fund, and that is a fund that can give up to £4,000 for a young person who is 16 to 24 to try something completely different. So some young people we've been supporting have joined a gym with a personal trainer and tried a bit of independent travel with a peer. We have also supported people to apply for driving lessons, pieces of equipment. It's very creative. I've got someone just now who wants to go for sailing lessons. So it is very creative, and as long as it has some sort of community connection there, we can pull together a strong application. We do a lot of person-centred planning in our work. As I said during the SDS slides, that person-centred planning is the approach that everyone should be using, and it places the person at the centre of all the decisions that are made around their support. We deliver big plans, so that is person-centred planning but on a large scale, with between 6 and 12 families in the room at one time. And it's usually for young people who are either leaving school to go to high school, or leaving high school to go to college, or for leaving college and going into adult services. We look at what the young person's dreams and aspirations are for the future and how we can break them down and make them more realistic. So for instance, there was a young person who wanted to be a pilot, and the people around him didn't know why he wanted to be a pilot. And the people that were working with him on the big plan decided to get the relevant people around the table and try and tease out the golden threads around this. And they found out that it wasn't just about being a pilot. He actually liked the uniform, and he liked the buzz of people coming and going for their holidays. So they managed to get him a job taking the suitcases off the carousel, and it was paid employment. So that's the kind of thing that we look at for young people, and we build up a lot of connections in the room, and with the connections that we have with our project as well, we can look at what their dreams are for the future. We do a lot of planning for the future, whatever that may look like for the young person and their family, or for anyone in their family. So we support with emergency care plans, and an emergency is not just a parent or a carer going into hospital. It could be that that parent or carer is not home in time for somebody coming home from school. They've been held up at a meeting or in traffic or whatever. So it's about knowing what the emergency plan is for that person then. And if you can imagine that if somebody did go into hospital, what would that look like for the young person or the person being supported? What sort of things would they need to take with them for an overnight stay? What would their routines would be like? All that sort of thing would be all included in the emergency care plan, and who would hold a key. And these emergency care plans all need to be updated on a regular basis because, as you all know, routines change regularly, so these emergency care plans need to be kept up to date. We also support with things like hospital passports, so that could be for someone going into hospital and how best are they supported when they're in hospital. So the hospital passport would be completed with various things around how best to communicate with the person. Do they need to use symbols? Do they someone need to talk to them, away from the situation? Imagine if they were getting an injection, how would the injection be administered? All those type of things. And the completed passport would be given to the health professionals and would be placed at the bottom of their bed as well, so that anybody working with them would know how best to support them. We've had success in delivering some workshops looking at behaviours, so that parents can look at their child's behaviour in a different way, and how best to communicate and use different language with a child. And one of the big things we do as well is signposting. So it might be that we're not the appropriate service for supporting someone, and we would find the appropriate service and signpost the person onto that service. So thank you for your time, and if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate in getting in touch, and we'll support to answer your questions as quick as we can. Thank you.